This is Audrey Rousseau, and we're going to get started. I think we just had a couple of technology hiccups, but it shouldn't be anything too troublesome. So can everyone hear me? I'm assuming that they can. Most people are on mute, but I just want to welcome everyone. My name's Audrey. I run the Pittsburgh Tech Council, and I am thrilled to listen to this afternoon. We have some remarkable people who are doing some fun stuff and doing some stuff that are really focused around community building and how that's integrated into their business. So I'm pretty thrilled. You're not going to hear a lot from me. I'm just going to give a little shout out to Shelby Mastovich, who's on our team. She actually leads this series. And if you have any feedback or any kind of ideas for the future, we're pretty excited about this series. Just reach out to Shelby. She's fantastic. So this is our CMO Insight series. Our focus here is to showcase leading practices and leaders that are helping transform the marketing landscape in Pittsburgh and around the world. So it's not just Pittsburgh based. And we're thrilled today that we're hosting executives from Trinity Health, Duolingo, and Pittsburgh Steelers. So that means Cincinnati, Seattle, and Pittsburgh. So we're pretty excited about that. Each of them have their own different kind of domain in the world that they're living in, but each and every one of them are working on the marketing and community building. So I'm really thrilled about having them here. I also want to just remind everyone, we'll put some information out, that we put together this tech record every year, which is both a hard copy, old-fashioned, as well as virtual. That is a map of the tech companies in Pittsburgh. The map has gotten really intense when we've seen how much has changed over the last 7 years. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me, and we distribute that all around the world as well as locally so that people can understand what's happening here as well. So I want to give a big shout out to C-Level. They have been partners with us for a long time, and they really are a strategic marketing agency. So if you want a partner that's going to somewhat get in the weeds with you on strategy as well as implementation, C-Level has been a partner of choice for many, many companies, both locally and around the nation as well. And today we actually have Janice Masters from C-Level. She's going to give a little bit more background, and then she's going to introduce our moderator, and I am going to be quiet. So I might get a little disruptive during the chat, but for the most part, I'll be quiet. So Janice, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a sponsor, and I'm passing the baton to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Audrey, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Like Audrey said, we're a strategic marketing agency here in Pittsburgh. We have a team of in-house marketers, storytellers, designers, developers, and we're really committed to powering brands and providing businesses with the partnerships that they really need in their unique industries. We're here to make sure your business has a bright future. And, certainly if you need anything, check us out at clevel.com. Let me know if you have any questions. But we're very excited to be a part of these events and continue our partnership with the Tech Council as well. So thanks for having us, and thank you, Audrey. Now I'm happy to introduce today's moderator for the event, which is John Denny. At Denny Civic Solutions, John works to create positive change by managing civic campaigns and engineering public policy. With decades of hands-on experience, he knows how to foster an idea from inception to execution, and thoroughly understands how to create a message, target its focus, and move the audience on an initiative, idea, or piece of legislation. A graduate of Carnegie Mellon University, John's honed his skills through a unique combination of professional endeavors, ranging from corporate communications to grant making in the Pittsburgh Foundation and nonprofit communities. With a trifecta of expertise from corporate, political, and nonprofit work, he understands the needs, the strengths, and the challenges each party brings to the table and can balance those needs toward positive outcomes. In addition, he understands local and statewide government because he's lived it. From that experience, he brings the understanding of the public sector to the forefront in assisting clients and helping them achieve their objectives. So, I'm happy to introduce you to our moderator today, John Denny, who's the founder and principal of Denny Civic Solutions. So
Thanks,
welcome,
Janice.
John.
Thank you, Janice. Appreciate that good long intro. I didn't realize all that stuff. And whenever you say you went to Carnegie Mellon University, which by the way, I went there for graduate school. It was the best 6 years of my life, getting through graduate school. Your IQ goes up a couple of points. And then when you say you didn't go, it's amazing. But thank you for that introduction. So I have 3 minutes to introduce our panelists and to give a little groundwork or lay a little groundwork for the discussion today. But before I do that, I just want to say very quickly that we here in the Pittsburgh region are very, very fortunate to have Audrey Russo at the head of the Tech Council. She has been a consistent and constant leader in our region. She has been a strong voice for the tech industry and somebody that we as a region look to when we need difficult problems addressed. So Audrey, I don't know how long you've been there, but we hope you stay forever at the Tech Council. So let me get into, because Audrey's on mute, and that's probably a good thing, because, you know, right? Okay, she can't find her unmute button. She really does know technology. So let's get into introducing our guests, or our panelists today. Our first panelist I want to introduce is from Seattle, Laura Nessler. Laura Nessler, is her face coming up on the screen? Does everybody see her?
I have to unmute to do that.
Oh, there we go. Wave to us all.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, there we go. Laura Nestler out in Seattle. She is the global head of community for Duolingo, a company we know well here in Pittsburgh and are pleased and so excited to have them here in Pittsburgh. So thank you, Laura, for making Pittsburgh part of the Duolingo story. It's really a wonderful story. She manages and helps to grow the Duolingo community of users, over 300 million users, and she relies heavily on their global ambassadors, which really is the driving engine for Duolingo. And you're going to hear from her what community means, how they have really expanded their work in the community as well. But I will say this, and this is probably a good way to lead into introducing our second guest.
Don't do it, John.
She has a little problem that she just can't seem to get over. She was, as a born and raised Seattleite, is that how we would refer to you as Seattleites?
Correct.
Seattleites. She has had a very hard time getting over a Super Bowl 40 and the Steelers' victory over the Seattle Seahawks. Really, she's more angry at the officiating than she is the Steelers.
What is offensive pass interference, John? What is it really?
Are you saying something? I think you're on mute. But she has seemed to get over that because she's even more upset over Super Bowl 49 when the Patriots beat the Seattle Seahawks when they threw a pass on the half-yard line and it was 2nd down and a half to go. But with that, we're so glad she's going to be on the same panel with Ryan Huzjak. Where's Ryan? We have Ryan on camera?
Right here, John.
All right, give a big wave, Ryan.
Hello, everybody.
So Ryan is Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he is in charge of everything when it comes to marketing, sales, content, online, offline, game day marketing. He even helps call plays in to Big Ben when he needs it. And the reason why they also rely on Ryan for all of this is not only is he a marketing master, but sports and football is definitely in his blood. Here's a guy who was a quarterback at the University of Toledo, is in the Toledo Hall of Fame. From there, somewhere in between, he got a master's at DePaul, but he went right into marketing and sports after a stint of coaching as well, where he landed then in Chicago, where he worked for the White Sox, the Bulls, the Bears, till he finally got some sense in him and came to Pittsburgh, Laura. So he is here, and he's going to share with us how the Steelers go about managing a lot of their content and how it helps in their community building. Last but not least is our Cincinnati friend here with us, Julie Washington, who is Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing and Communications Officer at Trinity Health. Where are you, Julie?
Hi, John.
Okay, I got it.
Can you see me?
No, I just see dark. There you go. Now, give us a big wave.
Hi, guys.
Okay. we now see you. So I don't know how many of you know about Trinity Health, but if you think UPMC is big, they ain't nothing compared to Trinity Health. These folks are huge. They are the largest, I think, healthcare delivery system, at least on the East Coast, if not the country, where they are a Catholic healthcare delivery system, 92 hospitals, 106 continuing care locations in 22 states. Julie leads the marketing and all of the communications, and she is highly recognized in the community locally and at large, where she was recognized by Black enterprises as top women executives in advertising and marketing. And Savoy magazine just recently named her top 100 most influential Blacks in corporate America. So welcome to our panel. And
Thank you.
we're going to dive right in, but to set the stage, I'll take one more minute and then I'm going to jump out of this conversation. But we have so many different terms flying around today and so many different understandings of the terms, whether it is brand marketing, B2B, all these type of terms. And here we come with community marketing, which many of you are familiar with, but just to lay the groundwork, I thought it'd be helpful if we shared a definition of community marketing so that we're all hopefully on the same page. And here's one that I found that I think hits the spot. Community marketing is a strategy to engage an audience in an active, non-intrusive prospect and customer conversation. Whereas marketing communication strategies, such as advertising, sales, public relations, focuses on attaining customers. Community marketing focuses on the needs of existing customers. So how does your company respond to your community when there is a tragedy or a disaster or a hurricane or some need, or in a time like now where so much reckoning needs to happen? And how do you do that in a way that also strengthens your brand? So with that, I'm going to go first question. And by the way, I don't know if anybody said this, we will be taking questions from the chat box here shortly. But the first question, I'm going to go to Laura out in Seattle. Laura, the word community in and of itself seems to have become a more impactful word, or seems to have changed a bit in terms of marketing. At Duolingo, what does that word mean to you all, community, and how do you reach your community during these challenging times?
John, you know, I like this question because it allows me to get on my soapbox for just a minute. So forgive me, cut me off, put me on mute if it gets a little bit too preachy. But just as a whole, the way I like to describe community to people that are not familiar with the industry is it's the reversal of the marketing funnel. So I would assume that most, 63 participants on this call understand the marketing funnel, right? You have your total addressable market. You do whatever you can to try and capture them, communicate with them, put up a billboard, do some skywriting, right? Direct mail, and then you convert through the funnel until you get your one person that's going to consume your product or whatever. Community marketing is the exact opposite of this. We work with the one person who is then going to contribute value to your brand in a really impactful way. And you invest a ton in this person, hoping then that they will become your amplifier, right? Your megaphone to help continue to spread your message. And so with this in mind, you know, I've had community in my job title for 15 years. And the only thing that's consistent is that people don't have any idea what the heck I do. And I think it's because the word community is routinely misapplied. I think that, you know, community, it started to show up recently as this buzzword or as this euphemism for users or for audience. And I couldn't disagree with that more. I think that community implies, a level of connection and advocacy and energy on the part of the people showing up. And, you know, as a brand, you are exceedingly lucky if you have this passionate group of people with a sense of ownership. But I speak to aspiring community builders all the time who forget the agency. They'll just plop a big group of people together, they'll put them on a list and they'll start calling them their community, right? So I think that if you're trying to describe both the average consumer of your product and the diehard fan in one fell swoop, you're getting it wrong. So in terms of Duolingo, to actually answer your question, community is really at Duolingo's core. Many people don't know this, but the majority, so Duolingo is the world's most popular way to learn a language. We have 300 million users who are using an app to learn a language. But the majority of our language courses are built and maintained by teams of volunteers. And what's remarkable about this is that they dedicate their time to come together over what they care about, and that's free language education. And they actually contribute to what's being made by actually creating the courses themselves. So when you ask, what does community mean to Duolingo? It's our secret sauce. It's our silver bullet. It's what has driven the growth, because we have teams of people, volunteers, who come together, feel a sense of ownership over the brand and over the product itself, and who contribute content that's then consumed by hundreds of millions of people every single day.
I really like your description of the marketing funnel being turned upside down when you're talking about this. And thank you for sharing that in English as well. I was afraid you were going to pick one of the languages that Duolingo teaches that none of us know. So thank you.
You can, John, though you can learn it. There's still time.
There must be time if I'm going to learn it. Julie.
Yeah.
I know that in our conversations, I know that Trinity does a lot of community marketing. And, that's not to say that because the industry you're in makes even more sense, but it seems to me that the industry you're in doing community marketing is really, really important. But can you share with us how, if at all, in this moment in time that we're in, with all of the issues, the COVID virus, the reckoning on social and racial justice, has your approach changed at all, or been changed in any way?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. I'd start first with expanding on the definition of community. So Trinity has 125,000 colleagues, is what we call our employees. And so the first community that was important, especially during COVID, was talking internally to our community of members, whether those were the physicians, the nurses, or any colleague in any position, because that's the group that was providing the care and delivering the mission. And as a faith-based Catholic health organization, it was important for us to be focused on how we served each other. There was an important piece of caring for ourselves, and you don't normally think about that as often, but as people were staying in our hospital and care facilities, PPE and all aspects of protection, safety, and security for them was just as important as what we were providing to those who came through our doors in need of care. And so the first piece would be, we probably had to do even more relative to our internal community and how we cared for each other in order to ultimately care for those that were patients of ours. The second community would be, how do you engage? And I think that was the word you used in your definition. How do you engage others in an initiative or a cause or a purpose? And I think that's where marketing and storytelling becomes powerful. We were able to not just talk about a pandemic and the bad side of it, but it was an opportunity to unify us. And I think you saw from children writing on sidewalks with their chalk and given moments of encouragement. And when we talk about the heroes, and that heroes come in so many shapes and forms, and we saw it around the globe. But I think that was a piece of marketing, is how do you enroll people that whatever they offer, I can use it. And you had people who could sew and they were making masks. We all could show up. Celebrities came and they offered food. And then you even have within, we had people singing to relieve some stress, but also to bring hope in what could be a despairing situation, especially in the early surges. So I think marketing has taken on a more holistic approach from the inside out, and we enrolled several members in our community to be a part of the storytelling at the end of the day.
So just to rehash or to reinforce, you shared a lot of the stories that were being told out there around this painful time that we're in from either some of your internal audiences in the community, members of the community, to really highlight them and what they're doing.
It was very much about everyone and the roles that they had. You don't think of a hospital having yard signs, but in some of our markets, we had yard signs that allowed us to focus on the heroes that were local. And it wasn't just healthcare workers, but we were initially talking of those who were essentials, those who were going out when everyone else was staying at home, but we needed them to go to work. And so how do you support, share, and build coalitions? Because you would see governors and state officials across the aisles actually doing joint messaging because education was important, and then to salute those who were actually putting their lives on the line for the rest of us.
Julie, I'm going to stick with you for a second and ask a second question.
Okay.
That is, again, when we had talked earlier, you emphasized how, especially at this time, and how it can help with community marketing, how the media needs us, our stories, our companies to tell the stories now more than ever, and we need them. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, if we just focus in on just the COVID-19 moment, there was a lot of content that the media was lacking, right? There's only so much of what's the latest case rate, how many deaths there were. They still had 30 minutes to fill. In fact, they had a whole day because now we were all at home. And so what we used was the opportunity to bring some of our true internal experts that could educate and at least ensure people were walking around with clear understanding and not with myths about things. And then we could tell the stories about those who had babies in the midst of COVID. Babies keep coming, they don't know what else is going on. And so how do you celebrate with people, or how do you show a story of someone who had been on a ventilator for 2 months, that they come out and they get to go home? And how do you tell stories of people coming together? We have a lot of our community work in other times around the health disparities that exist. How do you give stories around supplying food that we did as hospitals and as regional ministries to help others? And then the last one would be, after George Floyd, there was a group, White Coats for Black Lives. And so it allowed our medical group and clinicians to also show and lend their voice to those causes that we wanted to make sure we were standing for and uniting to say what we are not tolerating, but also to show the compassion and the empathy for our fellow brothers and sisters. So the media loved all of those moments, to be able to capture it, to be the first to put a tent up on their TV. So we were excited for the opportunity to share our community stories and not just the things that we were doing as a ministry.
So you really also position Trinity as a go-to expert on several issues and a source of content for the media, who has a lot of time to fill. And which, by the way, they also have fewer and fewer resources. You know, the print media, TV, their budgets have been cut tremendously. So that gives us a great opportunity because they're looking for things. And if we can provide it, we're going to get it in. Before I go to Ryan, I just want to take a moment to remind folks, you know, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat box, or Shelby, I guess at some point we can have people just chime in when they have a question. I'll take your lead, Shelby, on it, but again, you can put it in the chat box. So going to Ryan at the Steelers, picking up a little bit on what Julie said at one point in her comments about celebrities doing things. Now, professional sports and professional athletes have a huge megaphone when it comes to community marketing. Oftentimes it's applauded, sometimes it's been critiqued, but nonetheless, they've got a huge megaphone for this kind of work to be done. Can you talk to us about what the Steelers specifically has been doing in terms of helping to give voice to the community on these issues that we're facing today. And then I want to get into with you a little bit about the immense amount of content that you deliver and how you create, and how you best deliver that in an organized fashion.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and hello to everybody. John, to answer your first question, I think it's, from our perspective, we feel like we do represent the community in many ways, in terms of the way people see us and the way people look to us for information and for enjoyment, both here locally and really across the world, people who've lived here who have connections to our market. So we have, a pretty big voice in some things and across a lot of platforms. So that's a challenge to manage at times. The players, they're representatives of us and our organization, but they also represent themselves in their own communities. And so that's a real great opportunity, but it can also be a challenge. We don't, filter or tell them what they can and can't say. We certainly provide resources to help them understand, kind of what they're dealing with and some of the pitfalls that could occur if things don't go well in those in those spaces in terms of their own platforms. We have people that are in contact with our players every day, that we're close to them, so they understand, what some of the issues are to keep them informed. We do provide some guidelines to our players in terms of when are some times that are not a good time to connect with people, right after games, certain times that are very emotional or things of that nature. We try to encourage them not to respond. I mean, the thing about professional sports is we have a lot of passion surrounding our players, our games, our brand. Not all that passion is positive or uplifting. So you've got to be able to deal with that passion on both sides, the criticism and the compliments. So that's a challenge sometimes for our players.
And we always got to keep in mind, as I do, that a lot of these players, they're still kids. I mean, they're just very young adults. But tell me, Ryan, I don't know if this is a fair statement or not, but it seems like the professional sports industry seems to produce more content than any other industry I am aware of. There's constant content coming out from you all. How do you go about doing that, and how do you manage it in your delivery system?
Well, it's been an evolution. I think, as much as, let's call it 10 years ago, we relied really heavily on local media partners to really distribute news and information about our franchise. I think in the last several years, all sports teams, and certainly we have here in Pittsburgh, put a lot more emphasis and resource behind creating, cultivating, and distributing our own content. We manage all the main social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have regular content schedules on all those platforms, as well as our website, mobile app, as well as traditional TV, radio. We have a 24/7, 365 digital radio station that we program, as well as our games and events. So it's a lot of content. I think that the interesting part about it is that we kind of know what people want to see in many ways. They want to learn about our football team, and much of that is around the games and the results and the plays that occur in those games. So that's the core of it. It's always the core of it, but we are starting to expand outside of the core to things like, fan groups and fan activities, different languages, different geographies, different marketing segments, starting to tailor some of those messages in terms of how we deliver them, what we deliver them, and what platforms we deliver them on, so that they reach different segments and different folks in different ways.
Well, as we'd say here, different communities. I mean,
different communities.
One big nation, but different targeted communities in there. We do have a couple of questions I want to get to. One is from Aaron Watson. Aaron, are you on mute? And if you can take yourself off mute.
Yeah, what's up, everyone?
There you are.
Hi, Aaron.
Hello. My question was really just about how YouTube fits into the overall marketing picture and the content that you and your organizations are putting out, because it can kind of fall into like an SEO type of strategy that you might be implementing on a website where there's a lot of search going on that platform, but then simultaneously it's this opportunity for, you know, highly produced owned media on your, I mean, it's Google's channel, but it's kind of your personal channel with your audience. So just curious how you think about that within the context of the different industries that you work in. Thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. Who would like to take that one first? Julie, do you all use YouTube in any of your marketing efforts and community outreach?
Sure. It is a part to your opening comment about the size of Trinity. We're in 22 states and we have 92 hospitals. And so in order for us to effectively reach everyone at a local level and speaking about what's happening in the region, video has been a compelling way for us to send messages out versus the use of email. And so we actually have put much of our content on YouTube so that we could have access, but we've also then used videos inside of social media because when people were captive audiences, we could tell a better story and bring more education points to bear through video versus through, say, an email, white paper, or message. So it hasn't been an integral part where it's a large percent of our spend or our execution, but it definitely became a greater part over the last 6 months.
Interesting. Thank you. There's a question here, and I'm going to take this to Laura, which is wanting to go a little deeper in the conversation about community and authenticity. And Laura, the question is, based on our definition of community marketing that focuses on the needs of your current customers whose needs may not be what you're actually selling at that point in your core business, how do you try to support your community's needs and how does it strengthen your brand? And maybe that's a good way to get to this deeper conversation on community and the authenticity.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, community and authenticity in a way need to be synonymous. Kind of, again, when I was waxing lyrical earlier, I think, again, it's very easy to consider the average consumer in this kind of wider network versus these diehards, the people that are truly a part of your brand's, you know, cult, if you will, or the tribe, or the real core consumers that are kind of willing to do anything. And a story that I have that really speaks to this is, you know, these global ambassadors you mentioned early on, they're not just people who create our courses. Another program we have is people want to hold language events around the world. So volunteers will step up, pre-COVID now I'm saying, and we had about 2,000 volunteer hosts who were holding 650 events a week in 850 cities around the world. And these were happening every single week in, you know, I think something like 36 different languages, cities all over from, you know, Emporia, Kansas to, you know, Aleppo. They were happening all over the world. And when COVID hit, we, you know, Seattle, as many of you know, was one of the very first, it was the very first case. And so I raised the alarm and said, listen, these community members that are out in the world holding events, at some point we're putting them in danger. And this is not something that we as a brand want to do. We don't want to shut down language events, but we need to, and we need to make the call. So we did. We said, okay, you know, unfortunately, we're no longer going to hold these events. You know, we're sorry, hosts, but please stay safe, take care of your families, you know, follow local guidelines. And our hosts came back and they didn't let that happen. So they said, that's fine. We won't do them in person. But they started hacking our platform to, instead of putting a location in, they would fill every single address with a Zoom link or a different online video conferencing link. And they said, okay, we'll meet. We're going to meet anyway. And we obviously were pretty excited about this emerging trend. So we built a way for them to hold events online. And what was really interesting is that even though the volume of events decreased, it was 650 events a week, it decreased down to about 200 events a week. RSVPs, the people attending the events, went up by over 100%. So what we realized is that we were able to accommodate an audience that we had not even been addressing. We had been a bit blind to. And so I think that, again, your question of how do we be authentic and how do we continue to support needs, there are probably a lot of things your business, your core business can provide that you're not currently providing. And finding ways to be flexible and malleable in these changing times and showing up authentically, being able to say, listen, this is something that you need. We're here for you. We're gonna pivot and we're gonna allow for this. And so in a post-COVID world, whatever, 2025, whenever that may be, we will not stop offering online events. We will just continue this program because it's really unlocked a new way for us to touch communities around the world that we had previously not been able to.
Ryan, I'm just curious as well, taking what Laura just said as an example, assuming that there will be a season, the football season, with very few fans in the stadium. I know for the Steelers, all around the country and world, there are these Steeler clubs that seem to convene in whatever the local Steeler hotspot is, the bars or whatever, to watch the games. That may not be what it wouldn't be prudent to do now, and it may not even be allowed to do. Are you thinking about anything like what Duolingo is doing with their audiences, trying to do some kind of together?
Definitely. Yeah, no, we are. We're also cognizant of the fact that, that there'll be likely a number of folks who have purchased season tickets and would otherwise be at the games. They'll not be able to go to the games. So how do we connect with them and provide those experiences that if not fill that void, at least try to chip away at some of that void that they'll have for not seeing the team. So, you know, we're working on what we call second screen experiences that bring elements of our game and our stadium out to a larger audience, allow them to connect virtually in that way. Also some, you know, fan mosaics. I don't know if anyone's watched the NBA. There are some fans showing up in a virtual way in the venue, working on those elements. I just wanted to also build on what Laura said too. I mean, as I looked at our business years ago, you know, the interesting part about Steeler fandom, Steelers Nation, is that it's such a big part of a large number of people, their family life, how they connect with their families. It's multi-generational. It's all over the country in these Steeler bars and Steelers fan clubs. It's all over really the world in many ways, huge pockets of fans in different parts of the country. And our effort was these activities and these rituals and these communities are happening without us. Our challenge was, how do we get involved in a way that's authentic and helps support and helps these things continue for generations to come, not to disrupt them or change them, but just support them and be a part of them. So we created a program called Steelers Nation Unite that, you know, for lack of a better term, is a program that's basically investing in our fan loyalty and our core fan loyalty, trying to create experiences and activities, ways to validate those activities, ways to recognize those core fans. So for us, our Steelers Nation Unite platform is woven throughout all of our digital and social platforms, even our games. But that's really where fans go to be fans. And so that's kind of our, you know, a lot of our communications and our platforms are about football and stats and rankings and hardcore football coverage. The other part of that is recognizing people who come to their first game and how far they've traveled, or recognizing a birthday, or you know, sending out a virtual autograph, things of that nature. You know, fan participation elements all sit within our Steelers Nation Unite platform. So we really try to brand that as where fans go to be fans, and that helps us. I think that helps us manage our messaging. It helps us create different activities and engage with different people in ways that are contextually relevant and appropriate in all the different platforms and channels that we manage.
This next question, I'm going to ask our panelists to put their philanthropic hat on and how it connects with community marketing. This is from Greg Victor. Are you? Do you want to put your take your silencer off and join the conversation and ask your question?
Sure. Can you hear and see me, John?
I can hear and see it, Greg. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has.
Luckily, not now.
Well, what I'm up to now is I left the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette after many years and started something called the International Free Expression Project. And it's dedicated to promoting free expression rights around the world. And we have several initiatives to kind of sort of dramatize and publicize the dire threat to free expression that's occurring now. And it involves building an iconic work of public art that symbolizing free expression down near the old Post-Gazette building at the Point. And it also involves inventing really kind of new immersive educational activities. And then it has a large element of placemaking, because we hope to build within the old press room, again down at the Point in the Post-Gazette, something we're calling a marketplace of ideas. And that would be full of artworks and performance and food and drink and ideas, and make it a really exciting place for people to gather. And then we'd sprinkle these educational things around, and they'd encounter hopefully new ideas about how they express themselves and how they can protect the right of everybody else to do so. So I was just curious. I mean, I'm new to the nonprofit world. I started this a few years ago, and we're institutionalizing now. And I was just wondering where our guests see supporting nonprofits as part of community marketing, and who they reach out to and why, and what their thinking is on that.
That's a good question, Greg, because I know that, you know, obviously corporate contributions, philanthropy in the companies play a big role. Can you talk a little bit, either Julie, Laura, Ryan, about how you strategically make those, or how those decisions are made strategically in terms of supporting different community efforts? I know you're not the philanthropic folks, but.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, sure. I think, you know, from the Steelers perspective, much of this is ingrained in what we've done for a very long time. You know, we certainly get a lot of requests for support, just given the visibility of our organization. I think a couple things that are tenets to it. You know, one, we really try to focus on kind of youth sports, youth football in particular, and how that can impact the community. That's core to us and what we believe for a very long time. We've also got some relationships, Art Rooney Scholarship Fund, and a more recently created Chuck Knoll Foundation that John's had some involvement with, that we've gotten behind for obvious reasons, not only because it's supportive of our sport, but also our former players and the improvement of their lives moving forward. So some very core beliefs that are part of our everyday community marketing. I would also say too that the idea is for us to use what we're good at to further those causes as well, not just donate money, but also you get behind it organizationally. We have some high-level events that we use to drive funding that support these elements, and all of those events really take advantage of some of the things that we can offer uniquely to the community: access to players, unique experiences, things that we feel like really leverage the fundraising efforts and drive unique and long-lasting benefits for those causes. So it's trying to create those synergies, not only between the funding, but also the activities and supporting the things with what we're good at from a football and from a notoriety perspective.
Julie, Laura, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I'll underscore what Ryan said about making sure that what you seek to synergize is aligning with both missions. That's usually, I've served on several nonprofit boards. The opportunity becomes, how your request fits with that organization's overall purpose and mission. And that's what I believe that Ryan was saying. So for us, when we talk about the social determinants of health and we talk about food or the lack thereof, or having homes and shelters, if you're able to help us reach that part of the community that's forgotten or not being addressed as appropriately as they should, then those are the ways that we want to move forward. And, you know, at Trinity, we've given hundreds of millions of dollars each year around various initiatives related to some of the physical environment, the behavioral environment, the socioeconomic environment. And so all of those nonprofits that tie in, several of them have helped us during COVID relative to getting food to people. And so find your purpose and tie it to that organization's purpose, and it makes the conversations a lot easier to get to yes versus, you know, we've already given and we don't have another opportunity to consider at this time.
Julie, I have to say, not only is that a great answer, but I don't know if you're a ventriloquist or Cincinnati's got really bad broadband, because we heard everything you said, but your lips never moved. Totally.
Well, all good.
It's all good. Laura, did you want to say anything as well?
Yeah, I would just reiterate really what Ryan and Julie said. I think from Duolingo side specifically, our mission is to bring free education to the world. And so when we think about partnerships, when we think about philanthropy, it really is driven purely because of the single-minded focus on achieving this mission. And we believe firmly, we have a distinct point of view that economic inequality is one of the greatest threats to humanity, full stop. And, you know, the reason that our founder built Duolingo in the first place is because, you know, 1.2 billion people in the world are learning a new language. And of those people, 800 million of them are learning English to improve their economic outcomes. And so I would just reiterate what Ryan and Julie said. I think they said exactly what I would say, but from Duolingo's specific perspective, this is the lens that we see it through. And it does help clarify, having a bit of a decision framework to say, you know, is this very clearly aligned with our distinct point of view? Is this going to help drive our mission?
Thank you, Laura. You know, we've had a couple of comments here, and I'd love to get everybody's take on it. And this is not just our panelists, but if anybody wants to chime in, get your mute button off. And that is the issue of, and I think, Laura, you first started to address it and the others have hit on it, is we're not going to go back to the old models. That, in fact, if anything, this period of time has enlightened us on how we can build community or engage community in many different ways. And just going back to, in your example, the one-on-one live language get-togethers, that may come back, but it's not going to come back instead of or dropping what has now developed in this way, that these blind spots really have helped. So I'm just curious, do you all see this moment in time that we are in right now changing everything going forward? No, maybe not, but changing everything going forward? Or do you think that, well, whenever we get the vaccine, everybody's fine and we get out of this, we're just going to go back to the way things were?
I don't think anyone's ever going to wear jeans again.
I think you're right on that. And I promise I'll never wear spandex.
So John, I would add that just as we're having this conversation using digital technology, I don't think that how we go to work will be the same. Everybody does not need, will need to go into a brick and mortar building. We've learned how to work differently, and I think that's going to be an important game changer, because it's no longer that the stay-at-home mom mindset that a woman needs to be there, but men are working from home just as effectively as women. I think how our families show up in childcare, who's taking care of whom, is now jointly owned. So I think our paradigms are shifting our understandings is sort of expanding, and we're being enlightened about possibilities that we otherwise would not have considered. And therefore, there's no reason to go back because there's so much hope and so much new opportunity in our future. So I don't expect the new normal to be anything like normal. It's actually going to be a completely different unit of measurement.
To that point, a little bit off of the community marketing, I know some of the healthcare providers here and insurers have already announced that they're going to, I don't know if it's a third or almost a half of their workforce will continue working from home even when things change. Is Trinity looking and doing the same?
Yeah, for those that are not frontline workers, we still have everyone working from home with only a few of us from the executive team actually here in the offices. So we've learned how to be effective. It's sort of thinking in a more global mindset that when you're in a global world, we can't fly everywhere for every meeting, but we can still get the content and the conversations to get to where we're trying to go from a business standpoint.
Anybody in the audience want to chime in and give us your thoughts on this?
Yeah, John, this is Jeff. Appreciate everybody in the panel. I totally agree with everybody. I don't think we're going to be taking steps back now that we were forced out of the sandbox and use our creativity. I think we found ways to maintain communication with the public, whether it's general business or the public sector. With that said, I also want to say that the fear of the unknown is humans' worst nature, which a lot of times we are our own worst enemy for not taking that step out of the sandbox. But moving forward, I think we have great opportunity among all of us, and appreciate everybody's time on the panel as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else?
John, I'll just jump in, and I guess I'll just say, a couple of things jumped out to me as it relates to, how this situation will change how we move forward. I just am looking at, not only what is happening in professional sports, but what is happening in sports, even youth sports and high school sports. And for me, I think it's the couple things. Number one, the experience of gathering at a stadium and experiencing the electricity of that and that community and the power of that for our society. That's, certainly a big part of my job and our core business. But the other part of that is just the power of sport for our young kids, for our communities, for regardless of playing in college or in pro, but just those experiences in team sports. And so for me, as a parent and as someone who has lived that and seen that my whole life, I hope we learn how to get back to that. I'd hate to have those things lost in our communities for a long period of time. I think I think certainly from my perspective, we have a lot of people that are missing that interaction, missing those experiences, missing those lifetime moments. And so to me, just the passion to get back to sports and do it safely. We're making huge investments into the stadium experience so that will be forever changed, but in a positive way. But I think still the power of gathering and the power of whether it's sports or music or the arts or live music, all those things are, I think, just so important to our communities and our societies. I hope those things aren't lost forever or changed in a negative way forever. So I just thought, certainly we're going to work hard to make them safe, but boy, those are really powerful things for a lot of people. So I'd hate to see those things change permanently.
Team sports.
I wanted to tack on to, go ahead, John.
I was just saying team sports are a great character building.
No question.
So it's so important. Laura.
I wanted to tack on to what Ryan's saying here, from a leader at Duolingo wanting the culture of people to come back. I saw someone in the chat say, I miss being with people. As a parent, I have 3 kids under 6. So there's some desire to go back there. I just wanted to make a recommendation for everybody. There's a really great book. Priya Parker wrote a book called The Art of Gathering. And Ryan, as you were talking about it, it really reminded me of this. I think it's an and, not an or. That's my takeaway here. I think that we are going to be able to unlock more accessibility for some, but I even push back on the accessibility idea because we are now reliant on fast internet, great connection. You know, I'm speaking into a microphone, and not everyone around the world has that. So in another way, we are going to be limiting access for people who used to meet in person who no longer can. And again, as a parent, that's top of mind for me. My children are going to be fine. We're going to go to online school. It's going to be fine. But there are certainly populations in Seattle and every city around the world where that's not available. So I would say, you know, I think it's an and. I think that if we continue to create and innovate around ways to make accessibility truly accessible, whether that's in person or online or some new ways that we're going to find, I'm excited to just keep pushing for that and not settle of like, this is the new normal, this is the new future, except for jeans. I will never wear jeans again. But other than that, it's an and.
I might not wear dress shoes either. I've gotten used to.
There's a few things we're going to ditch, let's be honest.
Listen, before we end our session, Michelle, did you want to share something, or Michelle Price, did you want to share something? No? Did I see the gentleman's hand go up? JP?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to chime in, just agreeing with what Laura said. With what we do at Project Brilliant, we help companies learn how to interact in unique ways to get things done better. And I said in one of the breakout rooms that a great thing about what has come out of this, we've had a lot of companies come to us and go, okay, even though this is a terrible area that we're in, how do we learn how to work in pandemic mode when we're done? Because in a lot of cases, more work is getting done. They're trusting their employees to get work done, not just 8 to 5, but just get it done. We don't care how you do it or when you do it or where you do it. As long as it gets done, that's great. Those metrics, the old school metrics of, you know, let's have a meeting once a week at, you know, for 2 hours covering stuff that doesn't really matter, those type of things. I think that's going to go away, and we're going to find new ways to be productive, new ways to interact. I mean, I've been in sales for 30 years. I am used to drive time. I'm used to the art of the handshake and the dinners. I've been more productive, literally just Zoom call after Zoom call, and, you know, not wearing jeans for months, but I'm getting more work done. I'm building more rapport because I'm meeting people that are in their houses, and you're seeing them as people, not as clients. I think it's going to change really the dynamic of how a lot of work gets done for the better. Even when we get back to in person, it's going to change a lot about how just interaction itself is done. Even from a sports standpoint, I'm here in Indianapolis, but I'm a big Steelers fan. That's Franco Harris behind me. But I mean, even just looking at the interaction of sports before COVID hit, as far as being able to use your phone to order food from your seat, not having to go to concessions to miss a play, or, you know, being able to have, you know, an email come to you about all the cool things or people you can talk to or hear a radio show. It was becoming more and more interactive anyway. I think this is going to be a catalyst to that next wave of how entertainment is done, how telehealth is done, just how interaction in general is going to be done.
Well said, JP. Very well said. I'm going to go to Shelby, and I'm saying it slowly. Shelby is the go-to person at the Tech Council, put this whole thing together for us to see if there's anything else you want to cover. I want to be careful of our time, and just maybe what's up next.
Yeah, sure. No, thank you so much. And I'll pass it over to Audrey, and thank you all for the amazing conversation.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Really appreciate it. I really appreciate the candor. And we wrestle with the transformation of ourselves in terms of the Tech Council. And it's been, you know, an up and down, exciting, frustrating, interesting, you know, ride. But what we see is that there actually, and I wrote this, is that there is some intimacy that can occur through Zoom. And I think that's what you were talking about, JP. You know, that you can create some level of rapport in an authentic environment that you might not see before, that was a little bit more contrived. So when you hear the dogs barking or the kids running around, I could care less. I expect it. I really expect it from people. And I think that that creates just a whole new world. So First of all, I really appreciate everyone here today. I don't know if Julie or I don't know where she went. Laura, you here? Laura, you still on? And is she still on? I'm not seeing it.
Still here.
Thank you. Or Ryan, want to have any last words? But I think this is the beginning conversations of community. And I think it affects each and every one of us. Julie, I give my hats off to you in terms of the work that you do. You're an expansive, hospital system, and we didn't even touch any of the issues that are going on inside the walls of the hospital. No, that's outside. That was our intent today. So thank you for being in Cincinnati and being a great champion in the leadership that you've done in your work. And Laura, where are you? I'm not seeing you right now, but I
Still
think
here.
you're there. There you are. You're disappearing from me. But thank you so much. I mean, I don't know if everyone really appreciates the amount of penetration that Laura threw out numbers and the amount of penetration that Louise has been able to penetrate with Duolingo. It's massive, and it's unrelentless in terms of their focus and their values. And I say that because I've known Louise for about 10 years. And I can tell you he's disciplined in terms of his thinking on what really matters and make sure that that's their litmus test. So hats off to Louise for finding you, Laura, and you bringing this next iteration of community there. And Ryan, I know you're here somewhere as well with the Steelers. And the Steelers, I guess the Steelers do find their way each and every place. I know that wherever I travel, there's some Steeler bar, there's someone, if I wear my 412 shirt, even people will say, oh, there's Pittsburgh. So, but we still have work to do in Pittsburgh in terms of place and destination, et cetera. And the new world is going to change for us. It's going to change for everyone in terms of how they work, how they think, and how they touch their customers or touch their ambassadors, as Laura refers to them as. So Julie, Cincinnati's not that far away. We're going to stay connected to you. You are a woman who has accomplished a lot, and I know that you're going to continue to do amazing things. Thank you for, sharing your work with us. Just a little peek into the inside of Pittsburgh. And thank you, Laura, for your work in Seattle. I know you're tightly tied there. And Ryan, Steelers. I'm a big believer in sports, and I know all that it's brought to this community. And I knew the minute that I moved here, I could never say New York Jets. And, that's been erased from my vocabulary since. So thank you all. Yes, Sean?
If I could just, I want to just say thank you to everybody, but also Trinity, if you don't know this, has a footprint here in Pittsburgh, everybody. Pittsburgh Mercy, one of the best mental health providers in the region, is part of Trinity, and they're a phenomenal organization.
I forgot that. You know what, Julie, you did tell us that when we met with you before, and I meant to give a shout out on that.
So thank you.
They're so big and massive. So I want to give a deep appreciation to Sea Leveled. If you don't know them, reach out to them. It's easy to find them. Janice was here, but they're an active part of the community, and they're a market strategist, and they're here to help each and every one of us, no matter where you live, no matter what the work is that you do. And I want to tell everyone that tomorrow we actually have a Chief Information Officer Insights panel, and that includes leaders from University of Pittsburgh. He's a new returnee to Pittsburgh who's been all over the place, the CIO there. Allegheny Airport Authority. There are lots of things happening in the airport, despite the fact that ridership has definitely gone down about 85%, but we're not giving up for that, as well as Nationwide Insurance and Nestler Toledo. So we think of ourselves as regional. We're starting to scope out and starting to be much more inclusive of the region, because in the region can be as far as Cincinnati or as near as the North Hills, Pittsburgh, but we see ourselves as having that kind of footprint. So appreciate everyone. We have Ed's Women's Leadership Retreat that's coming up. Believe it or not, we're doing a golf outing, and a bunch of people have signed up because they just want to get out. They just want to get out, and they have an opportunity to be with some CIOs. And then we're also doing our next iteration. I think it's our 4th year of Cyberg. So we're pretty excited about that in terms of security and everything related to information technology related to security and privacy, et cetera, from some of the leaders all around Pittsburgh and the world. So we do a lot. So Julie, you can join us for some of those things, even though you're out there in Cincinnati. It doesn't matter anymore. And thank you, Laura. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Shelby. And we are going to log off. Thanks, everyone. And John Denny is the bomb. John Denny is the bomb. You can now put your shorts on.
How did you know I had them off? Oh.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Right.